before I start, I wanted to kind of follow on from what Des started with this morning. How many people know or can remember what mobile phone technology was like in the year 1990? Did it look something like this? Something like this. So let's have a bit of a. I met with my. Is the mic good? Yeah. So I actually met with my dad last week, and I told him I was doing a presentation on enterprise mobility. And so he brought this, and this is the phone. Actually, I'm going to give away my age now. This is the phone he used to call people the day I was born, which is absolute madness. So if we actually take a step, I suppose, let's do a more middle ground. Who can remember what mobile phone they had in the year 2002? What let's put out Nokia generically. So I had a Nokia 3210i. I think if anyone remembers, it was the blue one, had the orange down the side, was the first colour consumer mobile that Nokia brought out, was fantastic. And you probably ask, why am I talking about this? And actually, now I have, as James mentioned, I have a 950 XL, which wirelessly becomes my PC. So in the space of 25 years, we're going from this, it's absolutely incredible. And as a result of that, our relationship with these devices has changed fundamentally. So I want to give you a really quick anecdote to kind of summarize this. A couple of weeks ago, I was driving my fiance to work because she had to put a car in for a service. So I eventually get to work, having done the detour, and I look at my passenger seat, and I realize that there it is, sitting there, her lovely brand spanking new iPhone. And I think I'm in so much trouble. I should have noticed this earlier. I should have kind of run back and driven back to her building and given it to her. As soon as I log on, she's IMing me saying, "Where's my phone? Have you got my phone? Have you got my phone?" "Yes, darling, I've got your phone." And she said, I said, "But it's all right, I'll get it back to you later." She said, "But you don't understand, Andy. I feel naked without my mobile phone." So if we can have an honest show of hands, has anyone felt like that at some point, that you feel naked without having your mobile phone? Exactly. And is anyone here familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs? So, you've got your top area of the pyramid, self-actualization, going all the way down to the basic kind of human needs and benefits. And you've got kind of shelter, safety. So this sense of feeling naked and feeling vulnerable sits in that bottom layer. It's now fundamentally a part of our DNA, our culture, whether we like it or not. So you're probably saying, "Andy, I'm here to learn about enterprise mobility. Why are you boring me and preaching me with psychology concepts?" The reason is because the rapid cadence of innovation with mobility and mobile phones means that this is now part of our life. It's therefore a part of our work. People want these devices to use them in the enterprise to access their information. And as James showed, there's a huge number of technologies that are enabling us to do that. And who can quote me the very famous line from Spider-Man? Come on, there's got these people here. Uncle Ben to Peter Parker, great power comes great responsibility. Now, it's a little bit cheesy, but as the enterprise providing access to this, you are giving your end users great responsibility and actually great power at the same time. So it's very, very important for us when we think about this. It's not just we're going to let people use their email. This is fundamentally embracing security, mobility. And so I want to talk to you about Microsoft's mobility vision. Now, a couple of years ago, we started off with a product called Intune, which was all about mobile device management. We followed suit into competing with the likes of AirWatch and Mobile Iron, pushing BlackBerry out of the market. And actually what we realized very, very quickly was that a point solution for device management is simply not enough. So what we've now done is really embrace what we would kind of consider the 4 pillars of mobility, which is the user and focusing on the user identity. And actually the best way to look at this is to imagine, this building out bigger. So I'm one user. I confess I have 7 devices. On those devices, I have a multitude of applications: Office, Dynamics, Power BI, corporate, Twitter applications, etc. And then there's even more data, as James alluded to, a huge number of files. And actually, we need to ensure that not only is if we just lock down the device, there are 3 other key areas that we're fundamentally missing out on. So for us, it's really important to start with identity and make sure that security follows every single step of the way. And it's not just about our employees. This modern era, we are collaborating with business partners. We are, working closely with customers, whether it's around RFPs or project plans. And the best bit is that everyone expects IT just to magically make this happen. Now, when we talked about bring your own device and the consumerization of IT a couple of years ago, it was a real buzzword. We just didn't have the infrastructure and we didn't have the technology to really enable it where people felt really, really confident. So introducing the Microsoft Enterprise Mobility. So who here is familiar with the Enterprise Mobility Suite? A couple of people, okay, so hopefully this will be a valuable session. Fundamentally, the Enterprise Mobility Suite is just a suite of products, as the title would suggest. So 4 individual products that we've kind of brought together to create what we would consider to be a complete and holistic mobility solution. So we're going to start with identity and access management, which is Microsoft Azure Active Directory Premium. It's going to give us a number of functionality, great bits of functionality that really start with, protecting that user and your credentials. We'll then go on to mobile device and application management through Intune, and then following that through to information protection with rights management Premium, also sitting in Azure. And then the final one is Advanced Threat Analytics, which is a really, really interesting addition, which hopefully will tie up the whole thing. So let's get started. So let's think about the user. So who here, does anyone here work as an IT pro, kind of work closely with the identity area, Active Directory? Okay, so I imagine that this is potentially what your life kind of looks like at times. So we've always had a traditional model of on-premise Active Directory. You have access to your on-premise applications, providing kind of single sign-on, and that was kind of easy. You kind of had some managed devices that were domain joined, and everything's kind of sat in this smaller perimeter, and it's very easy to manage and cope with. And with the evolution of cloud, and this is where I get to play devil's advocate to James, is that actually it offers us so much, but it also offers us the biggest headache as IT of what do we actually do with it. Looking at the likes of what applications are your end users using on their own terms, which ones are you dictating that they use, and it becomes an absolute minefield because not only do you have your managed devices that were domain joined in the first place, you have a whole host of additional devices, smartphones, tablets, that people are then starting to access your information from. So it's really, really important that we start to really filter this down and make it much more focused and manageable for IT. So for us, it's all about integrating security as the control plane and having one common identity. So as we said, we kind of start off with on-premise identity through Active Directory. It's pervasive in the market. It's the market leader, comes with Windows Server, so everyone's using Active Directory. You've then got a whole load of cloud applications where you want to start to get users secure access to those applications, but also monitor what's going on in your environment. And the key to that is Microsoft Azure Active Directory. So really it's the cloud extension to the on-premise functionality and technology. And what we really need is a simple connection between the two. So you have your on-premise identities, and can I have an honest answer from the audience? Who thinks their Active Directory is in a stellar, clean, perfect state? So this is one of the biggest problems that we've seen, is that Active Directory often gets left behind. It's something that you don't necessarily manage day in, day out particularly well. So actually what we want to do is get some remediation work done on that, move into then do synchronization through AD Connect, a really simple wizard tool that connects to Azure Active Directory Premium, and you can essentially then build out that cloud identity. It's going to then enable you single sign-on across the board. So get your single sign-on to your Office 365, your Salesforce, your CRM, your Power BI, whatever it is that you're doing, as well as potential corporate applications like Twitter and Facebook. But you also get single sign-on to your on-premise applications. So there's a tool within Active Directory Premium called the Web Application Proxy, whereby you essentially install connectors on-prem, and then you literally authenticate in Azure Active Directory. So you have your single sign-on to all of your cloud apps, and you have single sign-on to all of your web-based on-premise applications. So this can really be your complete solution. And then when we still continue to think about the user and what's important to them, we're also bringing in the elements of self-service. So the self-service password reset is one of the most talked about and useful features of Azure Active Directory. So I can sit here and bore you with statistics, and as they say, 73% of statistics are always wrong, but there is a very tangible cost to what it costs a help desk employee to sit and constantly manage resetting users' passwords because they've gone on holiday and have forgotten to do so. They reckon it's an average of £25 to £50 or dollars per reset that's done. So when you think about actually there's an opportunity to build a service that not only gives you all of the other things, but essentially enables users to sign on and authenticate in a secure way, and to then, reset their own password. It changes the game in terms of saying you've got an individual that you can then reskill, retrain, actually add value back to the business rather than being a constant cost and having to say it must be so boring to do that anyway. So this is how we're looking at doing this. So really it's now about identity-driven security. It's great, we can enable it, that's fine, but we need to make sure that it's absolutely secure. There's a couple of interesting ways we do this. So James mentioned the intelligent cloud. So we are leveraging the Azure machine learning technologies and bringing that into all different areas of our cloud offerings. And Azure Active Directory is no different. So we use machine learning to help identify, these threats, and we look at this last one as well. If I'm authenticating here today in London, and then 5 minutes later I'm authenticating from China, the system knows that is fundamentally impossible. It takes data from airlines, flight times, and it knows that that's not possible. So it will flag that to our administrators and say, someone is trying to attack your credentials. And you can see those really detailed reporting structures. The application security is also really, really important. So we're going down into that level of once you've got access to the applications, how can we kind of improve on that? So conditional access is one that's really great that we're looking at. It's here today and it's being built into different operating systems, as we go through. But fundamentally, it's about, it's pretty self-explanatory from the title, but if you want to get access to Exchange Online on a new device, you're essentially having to fulfill a set of conditions to enable you access to that service. So you can set a policy direct from Intune that's connected into Office 365 that essentially says, okay, if I'm going to log on to my home PC with Exchange Online, we have to make sure that this meets the Windows 10 health attestation requirements, that it's not jailbroken, and that has to be then enrolled into MDM in order for you to do that. So a really, really simple way of securing that access to those SaaS applications. I'm guessing everyone's familiar with multi-factor authentication. So a very, very, again, secure way of ensuring that the user who's accessing the application is in fact that user. So you can set different forms, text, secondary email, phone call. I mean, we have it internally and I'm constantly having to do my PIN. At times it can be frustrating, but at the same time I know that actually I'm getting secure access to this and the company also has that peace of mind. Now the cloud app discovery tools are really, really interesting ones. So they reckon that there's anywhere between 5 and 10 times more SaaS applications being used in your organization than your IT team actually actively know about. So the Cloud App Discovery tool, you can essentially put out agents onto computers and you can then start to bring a sample data of the type of applications that are being accessed by your end users. So you can immediately start to gain an understanding of, okay, well, we're securing Office 365 and we're securing CRM, that's great. But people are accessing all sorts of other things. They may be going to Dropbox, amongst other things, which we don't want them to do, but that might be where they're going to. So it's a great way to kind of get that real-time analytics and actually start to take action, and really locking down that identity story. And there's also some great innovation coming along, in Active Directory Premium. So there's 2 technologies that are kind of in public preview that are really kind of going to be coming out in the next year or so. B2B collaboration and B2C Active Directory. So B2B collaboration is a really interesting one, and I know there's been particular issues, especially in the public sector and health, where you have people accessing different tenants, etc. Now this doesn't totally fix that problem, but essentially it's around federating identities with business partners to give them access to your corporate applications. You then manage that. You don't have to have their IT team as a filter. They can use their own credentials to go in. So it's a really interesting way of building out collaboration with those different parties. And Azure Active Directory B2C is a really interesting one as well. So we do have a case study with Real Madrid who've kind of gone in and done this whilst it's in preview. And they've essentially taken their application and they've basically used this technology to enable the end users to sign in with Facebook, Google, LinkedIn, whatever those credentials are, and have that as kind of a managed identity piece. So granted, for 450 million fans, you don't necessarily want to be doing that all yourselves and stuff, so they kind of got us to do it. But you have automation tools, and that's still something that's kind of a little bit further behind B2B, but it's certainly coming. It's really exciting. So there's lots of information online, and I encourage you to look at that if that's something that's interesting, and really good compliments to Office 365 as well. So moving on from the identity piece, I think we've all kind of accepted that identity is crucial. We start with identity and we need to make sure that's right first. Before any of this stuff happens, we make sure that the AD is in a good shape. So now we want to start thinking about devices and applications as well. So mobile device management, as we said before, there's an estate of domain joined devices that are managed by System Center Config Manager. I think other tools are available. But we also then have a huge proliferation of mobile devices that we're either providing from a corporate perspective, or people are bringing into the organization themselves and asking, they're asking you to be able to use them. So quite simply, Intune is there to lock down the device specifically. You can push down different profiles, ranging from VPN profiles or email configuration, being able to block the camera access, disable roaming. So I promise you that was the only ones I'll mention. I'm not going to bore you with the feature comparison of what you can and cannot do. That stuff's all available, and I tend not to memorize it because it bores me to death having to know all those different features. But it's there, an opportunity, the company portal application, going onto mobile devices, logging into that, then seeing what applications you're able to use. So this is the real first port of call for companies that are then going to secure those devices. And as James mentioned, with Windows 10, that's now being built in and baked into the OS. So actually, at the start of an enterprise license, you can just log in to Azure Active Directory and therefore have auto MDM enrollment. So it's a really, really important part. But once we've got that device locked down, it's extremely important that we then start to manage the applications that are sitting in there. So application management certainly being built in more to the Intune service. You have your managed applications and you have your personal applications, and they sit alongside each other, and you won't really notice it. This doesn't exactly do it the world of justice. It's not that you'll have one page of your iPhone that's all managed apps and that's the way you want to do it, but essentially you will have kind of individual application policies that you can set within Intune. So as an example, and I think so, marketing have deemed these Office applications enlightened applications, which I'm not so sure on as a marketing term. But essentially, Microsoft's vision and strategy for application management is a multi-identity policy. So, is anyone Android users? Do people have Android in the business? So you'll probably be familiar with kind of Google and Android strategy of kind of having multi-profiles, so having the same applications next to each other, but one that's kind of managed by the work and one that's personal. So we're really focusing on a multi-identity policy within the application itself. So has anyone kind of seen what this looks like? Familiar with this? So we're launching this for Office, where essentially you can have your corporate data and your personal data within the different accounts within that same application. However, you can't then transfer data between the two. So if I'm working on a document that I've received from my corporate email and I open that up on my iPad, I then copy and paste, or copy and then I swap my account in the top right hand corner to my personal Outlook account, I cannot paste that information in. So we'll just go through a really quick what this kind of looks like. So I receive my email, I get my Excel document, and I'm allowed to copy. That's great because I'm within my managed application. Copying is not a problem. I'm trying to paste that to my personal storage application. Doesn't work. There's no functionality that enables me to do that. But I can copy it into Word, because Word is also a managed application within the Office suite, and I'm there with my corporate identity. I also can't save that again to my personal storage. So we've seen that actually it's followed us from the email through to Excel, through to Word, and then again into the personal storage application. But I can save it to my work profile on my OneDrive application. So again, OneDrive also supports multi-identity. You can have your personal and your corporate. So we can see here that this is a massive change. We're literally doing everything we possibly can to ensure there's no data leakage at any point, and we're making this a continual kind of process and experience throughout the life cycle. But there's a really fantastic piece of functionality that we launched in November, which is managing mobile application management without device enrollment. So there'll be a number of occasions where potentially you'll have business partners or contractors that are working, third-party people that are coming into your organization doing work. They need access to your corporate applications, etc., maybe Office 365. But they obviously are already under MDM with their own business. So you can't actually assign any policies because you can't have two MDM solutions on the same device. But what you can do is through Intune, you can essentially say, well, okay, you've got your third-party MDM wrapping around the entire device, but actually what we can do is manage the Office applications without actually saying that you need to use Intune. So I caveat that with you need an Intune license to do it, and you need Intune, but you don't have to have the device managed by Intune. Now, aside from that, it's actually a fantastic way to really find the balance between, okay, how much do we want to empower our users and how much do we want to restrict them? Some users don't like the idea of the business locking down their entire device. Now, you guys will probably say, well, tough luck. But actually there can be a fine line where you say, well, actually, if we know that with application policies, we can ensure that data doesn't get leaked out of the device, actually we don't need to enforce any other device policies. So actually we're comfortable with that. So it gives you a real flavour of where we're moving to and how that's going to progress. And we've got a number of app partners that are working with this. So you can essentially, we're pushing our Microsoft applications. So this is currently really prevalent on iOS. So all of the Office applications, OneDrive, Outlook, I think Skype for Business has just been done, CRM and Power BI coming, and then I think over the course of the next couple of months, Android, this will be the same, and it's already available with Windows, etc. But there's also an opportunity for customers who have their own line of business applications that they've developed in-house to use the Intune app wrapping kit to essentially enable the same type of thing. So you can still build into the source code the ability to apply MAN policies and stop data leakage into other applications. And I suppose really this is just here to show from one screen how we are following everything through. And really we're one of the only providers that can actually do this. So you have your identity through your email, you have your device management, your application management, and the data, all of it kind of combined together. It's not multiple point solutions, it's one vendor that's providing the whole solution. So in terms of data protection, I really think that this is a really fascinating piece of technology. It's also very challenging. So this is the one thing I think that truly differentiates Microsoft in its vision of enterprise mobility. So is anyone kind of familiar with AirWatch's recent release, sort of VMware around, I think it's the Workplace One. So they talk about their four main things, which is desktop, mobility, identity, and apps. They don't talk about data because they still don't have the tool that really follows the security to the data and the file level. And Microsoft does have that. Now, it provides you with another challenge. So you have this perimeter, it's your kind of internal company. We looked 10, 15 years ago, everything's within the network, it's on-prem, we forget about cloud, we can secure this, it's safe. You've then got managed devices, so okay, you maybe start to go out a little bit more. But then, of course, you have a whole new perimeter, which is where's our data going? How do we secure data? Because actually, okay, we might be taking our devices out to companies and to customers, but what happens when we send a secure RFP to a partner and we want to be able to bring that back? And once that data's out, what are we going to do? How are we going to protect it? So rights management really gives us the opportunity to do that. So it's there to protect any file, to enable you to share with any person, view on any device, and track and manage from the cloud. So there are specific tracking applications that are there across all of the mobile devices, so iOS and Android. But you can also do that from on-prem and from your own your own devices. So it will cover you on-prem as well. It will cover all different documents. This is not just an Office 365. Let's cover Word and PowerPoint documents. Let's cover PDFs and stuff like that as well. So really, really easy to start to say, well, actually, let's secure every file. Now, here's the challenge. How many people use rights management today? How many people, when they send an email, secure it with rights management? How many people, when creating their marketing plan, secure it with rights management? This is the difficulty. This is a cultural shift that we need to start to bridge, because actually I can fully imagine, and all of you very experienced in the room and have seen different trends through IT, we think, why are we not virtualizing? Why are we not using cloud? I have no doubt in 5 to 10 years' time we'll be saying, why didn't we protect every document with rights management? It's so simple. It's so simple. You build your policies and then you just apply them to documents and to emails. The majority of data leakages that have happened in recent years would not have happened with rights management in place. But it's a cultural thing. So just in terms of understanding some ways that we can approach this, I think what's a really smart idea is to start with IT-controlled data loss prevention policies. So the users are experiencing rights management, but they're not actually customizing anything. The policies are already there. You can do it in the tools you're already using with Exchange and Office, but it gives you that level of security, so it becomes very, very easy. What you can then do is take a kind of sample of power users, those who could be the CEO, could be other people who are dealing with the most sensitive documents, R&D, etc., and getting them to start to build that in, and eventually then enabling broader rights management across the board. But it's really, really important, and actually, this is really here to kind of say, I suppose, message through this is, rights management is like having the best lock in the world on your front door and never locking it. If you've got the best lock in the world, you leave the back window open. What's the point? So really, this is something where we need to start enabling that, and I think those organisations that really start to embrace this are going to see real change, and especially in their own confidence about moving to cloud. The tools are there, I just think the understanding isn't. So the final one is protecting your environment. So hopefully we can have a bit of fun with this. It's a sensitive subject. So actually, I was going to ask you, but no, I put the slide up, so you'd be cheating. 200 days, they reckon, is the average time that an attacker stays within your network before they grab all your stuff and go. And it's actually quite scary when you think about it. And the amount of customers that I've spoken to, partners that I've spoken to, who, they're worried about their firewalls and people getting into the perimeter. But no one seems to have any plans for what happens when we find someone within. How do we prevent that? How do we kind of track and manage that? 75% of all network intrusions are due to compromised user credentials. So we're giving all of our end users real power and responsibility, but some of them have got passwords like password 123. So it's around using these technologies and tools to enforce, stricter passwords, and the money on the right-hand side is just crazy. Think about TalkTalk. I mean, Vodafone had one which was a lot less, lower profile, but these things are happening. People are going in and attacking. This is where it really highlights that you can have all the best lock. You need to educate your end users, have the tools in place, but actually you need to make sure that if someone does get in for whatever reason, that you can start to monitor that and track that. So Microsoft made an acquisition kind of middle of last year from an Israeli company who essentially it's an on-premise piece of software, right? So we go cloud, but actually we're saying, we're conscious that actually a lot of this stuff happens on-premise as well. Now, what this will essentially do is monitor your Active Directory and your SIM traffic throughout your network. So it will use similar tools as we spoke about with Active Directory Premium in terms of machine learning. So it will start to do behavioral analysis. It will look at an individual and their kind of behavior. So it will say, right, Andy, as part of the partner technical team, logs on at 9, logs off at 5 as an example. And it will then start to look at my team. Well, actually, it happens that James logs on at 11 and then logs off at midnight. So is that a bit weird? No, he just works harder. But you can then start to look at those false positives and actually say, what is normal, what's not normal. Now, if, for example, we were looking at our team and saying, well, actually, Simon, for example, is logging on at 3 a.m. and then logging off at 5 a.m. from China, yeah, that's probably not Simon. So you can start to go in and do that. It probably takes about roughly 3 weeks to start to gain real insight, and that's on the behavioral front, so tracking the Active Directory traffic. But actually, immediately you can start to check for known attacks, so pass the ticket, pass the hash, the skeleton key stuff. You can see those immediately, and that's kind of stuff that we're doing research out with partners and stuff, and looking at what those look like, and then giving those back to you in a very easy timeline type way. So really, this is about detecting threats very quickly. Now, the caveat that I'll say to make sure everyone's confident, this won't stop the attacker. Once the attacker's in, this is an alert tool. We fully expect you guys to have your own ways of dealing with them. However you want to go about doing that, I wouldn't be able to say. And this is really adapting to how quick hackers, because let's be fair, hackers, people that are out to get you, they're going to try very, very hard. And those of you that are maybe familiar with some of the new functionality within Exchange and advanced threat protection, looking at safe links and safe attachments, hackers are finding very intelligent ways of hiding their attacks before they get to your network. So this is just a really, really important way of us doing this. It's really a value add because actually this is, for public sector especially, every public sector customer should be doing this. Forget the other stuff. This is so important. If you're going to have hackers within your network, you need to identify them very, very quickly. So it's a fantastic tool. Now, I'm just going to kind of finish off with really a kind of a summary of Office 365 and Enterprise Mobility Suite. So I'm really, really glad that the guys at TIG put me up kind of first, really to talk about technology, because Enterprise Mobility Suite is the true catalyst in your move to the cloud. So before some of you may be on Office 365, others may be doing other things. Enterprise Mobility Suite for me is the core center to everything. Even if your strategy is not Microsoft, Enterprise Mobility Suite is crucial. Because once you've started and you've secured your identity, you can then branch out into other software as a service applications. Now, I used Office 365 because I'm from Microsoft and that's the way we're going to go. But there are obviously, we enable single sign-on with 2,500 different software vendors. So it's massive scale. So regardless of what your cloud strategy is, EMS is a great way to start with that. You're then taking into account that mobility is not going anywhere. This is not a trend. We're not suddenly going to start picking these things up again and thinking everything's okay. Smartphones are here to stay, and data, being out on all those different devices is here to stay. Now with Office 365, you do get some of the features of Enterprise Mobility Suite. You get basic baked-in mobile device management. You get basic rights management, basic single sign-on multi-factor authentication. And really, as you can kind of see from there, Enterprise Mobility Suite really offers the real, true premium level to that. And actually at a very reduced cost in the sense of, Microsoft, the way we do things, and we'll bundle things in together. From a cost perspective, it's really, really on the money. So for me, the key takeaways are, that I hope that you'll take away from today, is that Microsoft is the one vendor in the enterprise mobility space that has taken the full left to right view. We have fantastic competitors. Mobile Iron, AirWatch deliver fantastic device management. Okta deliver good identity management. IBM and Oracle deliver some good rights management. But customers don't, well, actually, your customers, so I speak on behalf of you, but the feedback I've received is that customers don't want multiple point solutions to fix one big problem and one big issue. It's difficult to negotiate with different vendors, and actually you just want to know that the whole thing works and integrates really, really well. So for us, we think that it's a really complete solution, and we're constantly innovating. The Intune, let's be fair, Intune came from behind. AirWatch and Mobile Line were already established, and every single month Intune is innovating, it's delivering new features, it's bringing Android up to par with iOS, it's bringing Windows up to par. They're constantly innovating. And as I mentioned, it is your catalyst in the move to the cloud. So whichever way you're looking to go, whether it's to start with Office 365 or something else, getting that identity piece first, regardless of what else you're doing, is so crucial, and I would encourage you to really focus on that. And it does offer the best-in-class integration with Office 365. So, Office 365 is fully established and developed as the productivity tools of choice. Best in class, best of breed, email, document collaboration, unified communications, and EMS really goes, beautifully with that. So, I believe that is my time up. So I'm conscious actually that you can't ask me any questions, so you can ask me questions later. Thank you for listening. Get EMS. Cool.